Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another live show, another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I have a smile on my face. We're going to talk about why I have a smile on my face. We're going to be talking about the sporting director situation at Arsenal, and there has been some movement on that. If you guys are living under a rock, Arsenal are in advanced talks to appoint ANDREA Berta from Atletico Madrid as their sporting director. So that's what we're going to be talking about. We'll go through some of his good signings, his not so great signings, what that means, what are his qualifications, and ultimately get your guys' opinion on whether or not you think this is a good idea. You guys know that I've been super vocal about this. And I was like, don't hire anybody in-house. Nobody in-house, nobody. In fact, don't hire anybody that's ever had anything to do with Arsenal before. Not Per, not Rosicky, not Jason Ito. None of those people have the level of qualification. Not only that, Arsenal really need a different set of eyes to move us forward. We have kind of stalled. We've spoken about that ad nauseum. I did like a 4-hour stream talking about how Arsenal have stalled out, how Arsenal have not moved forward, how, the recruitment hasn't been great. And obviously, there's been some positives, some negatives in terms of recruitment. But ultimately, there is very much so like a kind of like a negativity around Arsenal right now because we're not necessarily like pushing the way that we're supposed to. And so the sporting director situation is the most important signing we can make going into a window that 100% needs to move us forward, needs to get us out of this stalled out position on the side of the highway, watching people pass us by. We need somebody that's going to have a different set of eyes, that's going to be able to look at what we have and understand how to make it better. Also needing to have somebody in the seat that knows how to get deals done quickly and efficiently, and also somebody that knows how to sell well. As a club that is definitely looking like it's moving into a self-sustaining model, or the club has always wanted to, the owners have always wanted to be self-sustaining. There is no way that Arsenal can be successful without having somebody that can sell well. And so, yeah, we'll look and see, what ANDREA Berta has done in his career that shows whether or not he'd be the right man for the job. But I'm going to give a little spoiler here. I said a couple of days ago, it's either Berta or Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth was kind of like top of the list, then Berta, then Olabe. I'm glad we're not going with Olabe. Dan Ashworth is great, but Berta is just like right up there to me with Dan Ashworth in terms of we need somebody that's done it before. We need someone who's done it before, somebody who's been there, done that, wore the t-shirt. And so there's no point in just continuing on the same cycle of hiring from within. We need a different set of eyes, somebody with a clear vision that's come from a successful, background that we can apply. And then somebody that's also going to be able to deal with a big personality in Mikel Arteta. Mikel is no mouse, he's somebody that makes what he wants known. So yeah, it's a super interesting, conversation to have. A couple of years ago, you would never have conversations about directors of football, but now that we have more information and, football is evolving, these are key figures in football. Like years ago, we probably would have never done like a long ass stream about, David Dean and Luis Campos and stuff, but the information is available to us. And I think now as football fans, we understand how important this role is and how it could either push you up to a new trajectory or put you in a shithole, So we'll chat about it. Make sure you guys, like I said, are liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and getting into the chat. Most importantly, I do want to know what you guys think because I'm excited, but you guys know I've been screaming about this for months, so this is like, yeah, so yeah. Let me read out some of these comments. The comments are on this side. You are there. So that's why I'm looking to this side. Nico says, big up, Jess. Big up to you as well. Niall says, smash the like, subscribe, and share. Owen says, I'm also hopeful that him turning down AC Milan allegedly means he will have autonomy in some finances instead of another yes ma'am. Marco says Berta made some good signings. He won't be a yes man. He has the resume, the contacts. I like this for our club, but for Arteta outers, you may not like it. Berta worked with Simeone for years. And here's the thing. We've kind of talked about this. We talked about what we want. I think a lot of us are in the same boat of, after 5 years, if a manager doesn't win anything, his position should not be set in stone. But I think we all know in our heart of hearts and in our gut that Mikel Arteta is not leaving. The Cronkies are not leaving, and Mikel is not leaving. So that leaves one position only that can be changed, that actually affects what happens on the pitch. Obviously, like CEOs and that kind of stuff, like, those things do affect you, but it's really like the ownership's giving the fucking money, the manager coaching the fucking team, and the DOF getting the talent. So if this is the only thing that's going to change from now until next season, that's super important. I remember somebody tried to gaslight me and said, well, this isn't that important because it's still gonna, it is important, period. It is important. And like you're saying, he worked with Simeone for 12 years, which will make some people uneasy. But at the same time, if we already understand that our short to medium term future includes Mikel Arteta, then if we want to be successful, even if in the back of your mind you're like, Mikel's kind of not the guy, you want better than Edu. You want a better relationship than Arteta and Edu had. You want somebody that can bring in the talent. This is so separate from Mikel, because even beyond Mikel, he's going to be building a team, even maybe potentially for someone else. So I understand that aspect of things, that people just want Mikel out. And I'm also like feeling like, oh, well, you're not winning anything. So, I'd prefer to go get someone else. But this is quite literally the only thing that's going to change. This is it. This is the only thing that's going to change from now until next season. And he is going to be the person that figures out how to improve this squad enough to mitigate for some of Mikel's lower, like what he's not as good at. He needs somebody that's going to bring him talented enough players that are going to make the difference when the game gets tight, when the patterns aren't working, when set pieces aren't working. You just need somebody that's going to put the ball in the back of the net. You need guys that are going to stand up and do the job. Mikel needs a plan B. He needs a fail safe. He needs, when his coaching ain't doing what it needs to do, he needs somebody that, those types of players in his team. And he hasn't been able to get them, whether that's on Edu or him, whatever, but you need somebody that's going to bring in those figures. So I totally understand what you're saying. Aha said, what would an unprecedented summer look like to you? Bearing in mind the word means never done before. Plus summer 23 was 211 million on 4 players, including on, Declan Rice, and a new sporting director has a job straight away. I think I know that was like the PR thing that was coming out, but an unprecedented summer for us, if you're just talking about something that's never seen before, is probably a summer where we get everything we fucking need. For me, it's not so much about how much we spend, it's how we spend it. I don't like some of the people that have been hanging around for a long time that we haven't been able to get rid of, or players that obviously need to be moved on, that needs to get done. That would be unprecedented, wouldn't it? Actually getting rid of the dead wood. It would be unprecedented to get things done quickly and get absolutely everything that you need in order for you to feel like, okay, we are moving forward in a positive direction. So, for me, it's just more about, we know we need more talent at the top end of the pitch. That includes 2 players at the very least, a striker and a winger. And then you need to get a midfielder. And then whatever else you get, that backup goalkeeper, the defender, that's cool. But those 3 things have to get done. So I would say that's like an unprecedented thing, is getting everything you need. And idealistically, I'd like the targets to change a little bit. Not going to lie, I'm tired of hearing the same names. I like Nico Williams. Watched him at the weekend. I thought he was great. I think, he's much better than people get him credit for. He's just raw. He's raw talent that needs to be honed. So there's that. But I would love for the targets to change and for us to go for a higher level of player. I wouldn't be like, if we could go try to get somebody that really makes a difference. Like Zubamendi, I'm having questions. I really am having questions on that. So maybe an unprecedented summer would also include some different targets that definitely make us look like, okay, we're moving in the right direction. not just these young players, the kind of players that Arteta's been looking at, maybe one standout star that we weren't thinking about before the summer window happened, so that would be unprecedented. Getting everything done early and maybe some different targets, and maybe at least one target that's like, oh yeah, they ain't playing around, because we haven't really had that, have we? So yeah, that'd be unprecedented to me. Nico says, I'll be real. I ain't trying to see Nico Williams in the summer. Buying players on international performances is never a good sign, especially when the wages he's demanding. Let's see. Gunnarola says, unprecedented summer for me must include Isak minimum. I'm not hearing any excuses about price or how difficult Newcastle is. Oh, yeah. Marco says, for me, getting both Verts and someone like Kudus or Jokeris would be unprecedented, assuming Zubi also comes in. Chris says, Mikel will 100% leave in 3 or 4 years, regardless of what we win. He's not a 20-year man. He'll get a job in Spain or Italy. Berta is a good long-term appointment, regardless of the manager will be. And that's just the reality, is that a lot of times the team that Arteta is working with will end up being a team that somebody else is working with. So I think of it very separate than Mikel, but if we're getting a sporting director and he's not going, then we already know Arteta's not leaving. So I'm looking at this person as somebody that can look at the base that we have and figure out what group we're going to move forward with and what pieces are missing. I don't think it's rocket science. I think we all know what pieces are missing, but equally you need somebody that's going to be able to look at the pieces that are missing and get us not the perfect options, but the types of signings that take you from really a top 4 side to a title winning side. And I think that's where we're kind of struggling, is what do those players look like? And that those players, it's the talent is already there, but I also think the mentality is a big thing as well. Can't just continue to get nice guys. You need to get guys that are bastards. And to be honest, Berta has signed a shit ton of bastards. He has, for Simeone, and I know Simeone's brand is very much so like the enemy. Like, he very much so gives villain, so the players that he likes to bring in also carry that villain kind of vibe to them. Arteta has stuck with the niceys. I would love to see Berta come in and say, you don't need no more nice boys. We got enough of those. We need guys that are good enough to win the league in a situation where you're not meant to. So we'll go through what he did, but to win 2 league titles in La Liga, in a league where you're not meant to, they're not meant to. They're consistently a top 4 side, signed, sealed, and delivered. I know at some point they were in Europa and they won that, which is something that we couldn't do, which was be in a lower level competition and actually win it. But I think when you look at when they weren't in Champions League, they actually won that lower level competition with a group of players. But then also when you look at Atletico Madrid, you do envision them in Champions League. And so they're like a consistent kind of top 4 side. And they've also won the league despite them not ever really being the team that was meant to win. It's always supposed to be Barcelona and always supposed to be Real Madrid. And even if you look back and you're saying, yeah, but Barcelona and Real Madrid weren't that good, look at the situation that we're in right now. Man City is not that good right now. This is not the best Liverpool we've ever seen, and we're nowhere fucking near it. So you want somebody that can build a squad capable of taking advantage of other teams not being good enough and winning silverware, period. That's what you want, So he's going to be building a side for Mikel, but then also building a side for then and beyond, which is great. Wayne says they dropped in Europa from UCL and knocked us out of the semis. Let's see. Mr. Happy says, just block Big Fat Robbie. I don't even know who that is. Luth fan says, Lee Gunner said, Jokeris is shit. Welbeck better than Salah. Savinho better than Saka. Minus football knowledge. Better watch Curtis than Lee. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, personally, I think that this isn't going to be good for us. And so I got some little, stuff up here. We're going to look through some of his signings and see what we think of them. So make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. I I am loving this. And I'll tell you one reason I really like this is even though I'm going to read out these lists and some of the signings were more successful than others, I like to know what I'm getting. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm very much so like a show me what you've got, cuz a lot of people that we have on the books right now and people that a lot of Arsenal fans talk about, it's all mythical. It's all about what they think they could possibly be and what they could be in a couple of years. I'd rather know exactly what your pros and cons are before we even get started so I know what I'm working with, because working on potential for literally everybody doesn't work. The group of players that we're working with is a group of potential, the manager is potential, the assistant coaches are potential, everyone was potential, so I think the fuck? I'm getting like a one of those calls from somebody that's like in office, like go. Um, so even though there's obviously going to be some good and bad signings, I'd rather know what you did and what you didn't do, what worked and what didn't work, than we're just like, yeah, but in a couple of years I don't want to hear that. I want to hear what you've already fucking done. Um, and often as Arsenal fans and as Arsenal in general, because the club I think has some fans thinking this way, is it's all about what we think they could potentially be instead of just getting what you need. So these are some of his better signings. So Jan Oblak and Antoine Griezmann. So do you guys remember? I was watching Atletico Madrid the other day, I think because they were playing Bilbao and I was trying to watch Nico Williams. But I saw Jan Oblak back there, and I just thought to myself, do y'all remember the era where he was the guy? Do you guys remember when he was like regarded as one of the best goalkeepers in the world, if not the best? You know, I think, that goes down as a really good signing. He's been there for a fucking decade. Like he has to have been there for a decade. And so, this says Oblak has consistently been regarded as one of the best goalkeepers in the world and practically a steal in the transfer market, costing 13 million from Benfica in 2014. So, cheap, he's able to look in different places, he's not just looking within the league, but I think you could consider that a really good signing because they haven't needed another goalkeeper since, and he's very consistent. Whether his level is still at the same level it was 5 years ago, because I remember there was a moment where Chelsea really wanted Jan Oblak and they ended up going with Mendy because they couldn't get Oblak. And then we see what happened post that. But I remember that internal panic of, if Chelsea go and get Jan Oblak, they are set, you know? So I think that ends up being like a really, really good signing. Jan Oblak in 2025 is not what he was a couple of years ago, but that's a great signing. So they're saying that he actually made a 64 million pound profit on Griezmann after he signed after he signed him and then sold him to Barcelona at a huge cost, then brought him back 2 years later for cheap. And I don't know if you guys keep up with Antoine Griezmann, but somebody needs to do an investigation on why he's never talked about as like an all-timer, because he's consistently puts up high numbers in La Liga. Like his numbers rarely go down. Like he's always in like double figures. Like he's a consistently top level player and nobody ever talks about him for some reason. He's never considered an all-timer, but he 100% is. He's not a streets will remember. No, he's an all-timer. He needs to be up a little bit higher. Not to mention he's won the World Cup. Like he's won things with club and country. But he has 197 goals and 91 assists for Atletico Madrid. He's their version of Salah, only Salah never dipped out and went to Man City. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that, that ends up being a really good signing, and it shows on both ends of the pitch, whether it's a goalkeeper or an attacker, he has a good eye for what a great attacker looks like and what a good goalkeeper looks like, which are two things that we tend to miss the mark on. So let's see what you guys are saying before I continue. Griezmann, is brilliant. He was amazing for France internationally as well. Jacob says, when Griezmann was at Sociedad, I wanted him at Arsenal. Faceless Mutant says, Berta is going to have to sign players on Arteta's taste. Arteta's very specific with his taste. Jordan says, looks like we have a shrewd businessman. And let's see, and Chris says Mansell Griezmann for 120 million and brought him back for 40 million. That's elite shithousery. And listen, if you're going to end up selling good players, you want to make something off of that. And that's an extraordinary profit to bring somebody back. And he's still really performing well at Atletico. So I think that's a really good sign. Now, Rodri only spent one season at Atletico. Like, he only spent one season there, and they bought him from, I want to say Villarreal. I could be wrong, but I think they bought him from Villarreal for like 20 million. And then they ended up selling him to Manchester City a season after for his release clause. That was like 62 million pounds or something like that. So they made a 40-something million profit on Rodri, who was only there for a year. Mind you, this person ends up becoming the best player in the world, according to the Ballon d'Or results. So not bad. That's not a bad return. You have him for one season, you sell him to somebody else. And, if we could do something like that, that'd be kind of cool. I don't think Atletico ever at any point thought, oh my God, we're really missing this guy. I know that he's, considered the best in the world now, but at the time, I don't think anybody was like, Atletico's making this huge mistake, so that's pretty fucking good too. I think that that's a really good return. And it's like, these are numbers that we've never seen, by the way. We're selling Eddie and Nketiah talking about 30 million. That's fucking great. Like, yeah, like we've never seen money like this before on sales, have we? And then also being able to bring in players for cheap. Ebenezer says all the players there now are Arteta's taste and recommendation, yet he is still yet to win shit with them. You guys are talking about, I think somebody said that he's going to have to go to Arteta's taste. Even if he goes to Arteta's taste, he needs to get the best version of whatever Arteta's taste is, or recommend something that's similar, but maybe better from his vantage point. Like, one thing we don't know is how Arteta is going to work with somebody that actually knows how to do their job. Arteta, since he's been here, has been working with Josh Kroenke, Vinay, who was like the sponsorships guy that was moved into the CEO position. And the only people that have a long-term like resume are people that work in the financial aspect of things. Tim Lewis and Richard Garlick have been doing their jobs for a million years, but Edu is relatively novice, especially like he had no CV really in Europe. So Arteta and all of his assistants and everything except for Stuyvenberg are children. No offense, but they are. So I don't think we actually know what his relationship is going to be like with somebody that can say, well, my experience is blank. Yeah, I know you want that, but this doesn't work. So we're going to go do blank. We don't actually, and that's the best thing about getting somebody that actually has a long CV is that he can actually chat to Mikel and say, well, that doesn't work. Or you need this. Or if we're going to win the league, we cannot not have this type of profile. If we want to win the league after missing out like on it, blah, 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 we don't need to go buy a Kai Havertz. We need to go buy a blank. And I'm going to go get it for you for 30 million or 40 million or whatever it is, So personally, we don't know what this relationship is going to be like. We don't know if it's going to be like oil and water, or because Mikel has somebody better sitting next to him, maybe we see a better Mikel. We don't know. My feeling on Mikel is that he doesn't play well with others, but that could just be, me reading into it because, like I said, I have the ick. So everything that he does now makes me think like, oh, so it could just be that, like, but back to the Rodri thing, like that's a very, very good signing. So yeah. So this one actually really surprised me, but then when I thought back to it, I was like, I didn't remember how it came about, but this is what I'm talking about, from selling to identifying top attacking talent to identifying goalkeepers to being able to find like real opportunities in the market. So he bought Luis Suarez from Barcelona. Barcelona were trying to sell Luis Suarez for 5.5 million. And Berta was like, well, shit, I'll get him. I'll take him. So Atletico Madrid bought him for 5.5 million. And he was 33 at the time. They won La Liga that season that they bought him. He scored 21 goals. Listen. If we ever in our lives thought about buying a 33-year-old goalkeeper, or not goalkeeper, striker, remember what happened when we were talking about Ollie Watkins, but he's 29, but he's this and that. Is he still there? Luis Suarez is not there. They didn't have a problem offloading him either. This isn't what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's just some people that know how to operate, and he knew that, okay, if we just bring him in, get a year or two out of him, we'll win some shit. Not every single signing has to be for the long term. Sometimes it's about winning right now, so to me, that's good operation in the market, bringing in somebody that still has a couple of good years in them, good enough for you to win La Liga. He was cooking. So let's get into, actually, let me read some more of the comments. And then we'll get into his not so great signings. Chris Frazier says, spot on, Jess. DJ Polar says he's cooking with Inter Miami still. Abdilo says this fan base would go into cardiac arrest. Yes, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't necessarily always care about how old the player is when we bring them in, as long as we know that we can get them out when they inevitably mold and go bad at the back of the fridge. But usually what ends up happening is because we don't have good, we don't have anybody that knows how to sell, that has good relationships that can offload. We're so afraid that we're going to end up keeping them for that additional 2 or 3 seasons. We won't be able to bring somebody else in. That was never a problem at Atletico Madrid. RM says, which is why we should have got Tony, but y'all didn't want to hear it. Fair enough. I wasn't on the Tony train. Ebenezer says Martinelli and Trossard don't seem to be those guys. Marco says the best thing about Berta is that he can find more options for Mikel. Arteta probably said, I want Kai, and Edu couldn't give him an alternative. Berta would. Just welcome to the Rat Army. We've come a long way. DJ says, isn't Vinay leaving this year? I think so. I don't really know what's going on with the CEO position, but I think it's maybe still vacant, but I'm not sure. John says we had Valverde, and now he's world class, meaning like he was meant to come to Arsenal at some stage. And Osman says selling Griezmann and getting him back for cheap, that was a good one. Atletico had bigger signings than us in the last 10 years, so it's a no-brainer. So yeah. Now let's go into some of the not so great signings. I guess like the biggest one would be João Felix. He is, it's amazing to me how he continuously gets to go to big clubs. Like big clubs continue to pick him up, but he's quite clearly somebody that has not met the, whatever they thought he was going to be, he didn't become that. He's the 4th most expensive player all time, costing 113 million. The Portugal forward never adapted to Simeone's style of football. After several loan moves, he was finally sold to, Chelsea at a substantial loss. I want to say they still got like 40 million or something like that for him, even in the dire straits that he was in before he went to Chelsea. I'll actually check that now. Because we would have got 0 like we did for Pepe. Let me actually check this. Okay, so Chelsea bought him for, is this the fee? Yeah. Chelsea bought him for 52 million euros. So let's just rewind. He was the 4th most expensive signing of all time. They bought him for 113 million pounds. Let me actually do the math on this. 113 million pounds to euros. Okay, so they bought him for 136 million euros, and Chelsea bought him for 52 million euros. So that is a substantial loss. Even when you add up like the loan fees that he had in the times, like, you know, he had like an 11 million pound loan fee. You know, that doesn't really account for the amount that they spent on him. This, you know, so that is a poor signing. So you have to look at that. It's like, why would you bring in somebody that doesn't have, like, it was a strange move at the time. I remember, you guys remember back then, it was like, out of all the places you could have sent him to, Simeone is definitely known for being more of like a defensive pragmatic. Like, he is not going to find a spot for somebody that is positionless. One of the worst things about João Felix, and I think also attributes to players like Havertz, is that there's a difference between being multifaceted, can do multiple things, and you're versatile, and somebody that is okay at a couple of different things, but you can't actually, they'll never be better than the actual specialist in the position that they operate in. Whatever they offer is never enough for them to be in that position long term. And they never quite look like they're pulling off whatever position it is, whether it's out wide, whether it's at the 9, whether it's at 10, they're not quite pulling it off. And that's kind of João Felix's issue. And so to bring him into a Simeone side that does not have positionless players, the only player that can operate kind of like in that creative floater role is Griezmann, but he's elite. You know, he adds goals and assists. You add shit, you know, so strange signing. The major difference between this and what we did with Pepe is we got nothing. At the very least, even though you lost a shit ton, you didn't lose everything. You still were able to bring in 50 something million. So I look at that as somebody that at the very least, even if you fuck up, you know, because even how long did he stay there before he left? So he was there like 4 years, you know, before he went on loan to Chelsea. So, you know, he was, and at 100 and something million, you would try to make it work. Like, I could see that. And I remember at the end, it got to be like, bro, you need to leave. But, you know, so that's probably a negative against him, is bringing in somebody that didn't necessarily, and if this happens like a one-off, yeah, but be like one of your most expensive signings, that's not great. Does that erase all the good stuff? I don't know. You guys let me know. But for me, that's like a little bit of like oh, okay. But at the very least, you didn't get nothing. Remember, we got nothing for Aubameyang. We got nothing for Ozil. We got nothing for Pepe. We got nothing for so many players. So even when we fucked up, we couldn't like at least make it work. And to be honest, if you look at every single DOF, whether it's Berta, Dan Ashworth, Luis Campos, everybody has at least one or two fuck ups in there. It's about how you fix it and how you don't make it a long-term problem. Let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Chris says, we're allergic to selling players for money, Jess. Jacob says, during then every player was going for like 100 million. It was mental. It was like the first time that the market had like really inflated, like, and it was like really insane. So I remember those times. He was never worth that. And Benfica had been swindling people for years now, you know, so there's only been a couple of players that I feel like have lived up to their price tag that have come from Benfica in the last 10 years. So yeah. Let's see. Marco says Felix was meant to be what we think of Musiala. Going to Atletico is what killed him. I agree. It just was not. And it just shows that one bad move can make the dominoes just dook, 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 dook. I think there's an alternative universe where João Felix goes somewhere else that suits him from the beginning, but spending 4 years at a place where the manager just does not fuck with you can only do damage. And he's just so hard to figure out where you want to put him in the team. And I don't think he sees himself as a squad guy, so when you have somebody that feels like they're meant to be in the team all the time. But I think one of his biggest things is that he doesn't offer enough GA to have this free role, and he doesn't quite hit the mark out wide. He doesn't hit the mark at the 9 or the 10. So he's positionless, and it's hard to fit somebody like that in the team when the manager doesn't play that way, so yeah. RM says, how do you look at the differences between Simeone and Arteta? Do you think he can identify players of a different style than what he has been used to over the last 10 years at Atletico Madrid? I think one of the big concerns that people have, and I don't even have to look at Twitter to know that this is what people are saying, but yeah, well, if we get a DOF that's been at Simeone's side for 12 years, then that means we're going to get Simeone players. We're going to play pragmatic. We're not going to attack. We're going to do this and that. Which I understand. I totally understand that thought process, but I do think that surely, it's not that he can, the style of player to me is not really what the DOF is there for. I don't think I do think some DOFs, they get a reputation for this is the type of player that they're good at getting getting those types of players. But for the most part, it is more based on the club. We've seen Edu go from being able to find more creative players to, more physical players or whatever. I think that's more based on what the club see the ethos of the team being and what the manager sees the ethos of the team being. I don't think getting Berta means that he's not going to be able to attribute what he does as a DOF to the style, because what he needs to, he has so I don't think that if you give him okay, well, I want a more attacking player, he's not going to be able to see an attacking player. I want somebody that's more technical. I don't think he's going to not be able to see a more technical player because he's been at Atletico for so long. I don't think that's actually what we're talking about. I think the important thing is being able to take what the manager is saying and be able to use your talent of identifying that type of talent from what he's saying and being able to operate and make the deal happen. I think people are thinking too hard about this. They're thinking if you get a manager would be different. If you get a manager like Simeone, you are playing pragmatic football. But the DOF is different. He's meant to be building the team in the eyes of the manager. The manager and the club build that, not the DOF, unless the DOF is like Raul. Simeone is the face of Atletico. They are building that team in his image. Arsenal were not building the team in Emery's image. We are more similar to Atletico now. That's more what we're in. Arteta is the face, and we are building a side in his image. So he will be looking at players that fit Arteta's kind of whatever his style is. But hopefully his experience is going to give him the ability to, 1, veto certain bullshit, 2, give him better options, and 3, kind of be able to get different types of players because his connections are better than Edu's were. So to me, I don't really worry about the style. The style is built around the manager. It's not built around the DOF in the way that we're structured, if that makes sense. So yeah, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. But one thing that I do want to see too is somebody that the club feels that they can trust to build the whole thing, the whole, recruitment situation to be a lot more multifaceted than just the first team. The loan system is shit. The academy is still, to me, further below, further behind other clubs, especially Manchester City. We don't have a feeder club, a sister club, or something that we can take from and loan to. We don't dominate in a certain area in terms of recruitment. Manchester City have triple the amount of scouts in South America than Real Madrid. We probably don't have anyone out there, so it's more than just that. I'd like this to be somebody that could see themselves in this next journey, next part of their career as an opportunity to build a much bigger, like, like a more well-rounded recruitment like department than just we're recruiting for the first team and we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. Because we should be able to look at somebody like Sever Nipan or whatever his name is and still also look for the first team. But it just seems very much like we can't do anything for the future because we're so focused on right now. But everything else is like, it's not really building for the future. So, I would love for that to happen, So yeah. So João Felix is on here. And then also Thomas Lamar is on here. And Mateus Cunha is on here. So I think I don't rate João Felix or Lamar, but I haven't seen Lamar play, since TVs were in black and white, so I don't really remember him like that. I remember him at Monaco and he was a part of a really good side, but beyond that, it's like, when's the last time you've seen him play? Cunha is a funny one because I think a lot of people would take him now, but he was definitely considered a flop at Atletico. So, crazy. So wild. So this says another seemingly no-brainer of a transfer was to re-sign Diego Costa for 50 million after he was unceremoniously dumped from Chelsea, but his second spell at the club was a disaster, yielding just 19 goals. So yeah, there are some more like, not everything was perfect. I think the biggest thing is that, they're able to get money back from the mistakes that they've made. There's actually a better list out here too, because there's more and I'll find that. But I think that does give us like a good idea of kind of like what he's on, Let's see. ANDREA was a flop at Juve, as was Vieira at Milan. Yeah, he was considered one. I do think that like there's a key difference in like flop from Juve and then what we've kind of started doing with like the Kai Havertz's and stuff like that. I think the player has to be like talented, and you need to have somebody that can identify the talent. I don't know who still thinks Kai is like super talented, but maybe I can't see it. Everything about him that's great is off the ball. So yeah, let me pull up another one here. Like the one I was looking at earlier was a little bit better than that one. Just like to a little bit more of a background. He's Italian. And then before he was at Atletico, he was at Parma and Genoa. But obviously he made his career at Atletico. Jan Oblak, Antoine Griezmann, Rodri, Yannick Carrasco are like successes. Luis Suarez was successful. Julian Alvarez is definitely a success. We don't need to see more than a season of him to know that was a really, really good pickup for them. And, I didn't really understand why people were saying that he was flopped, but at City, but he didn't. He just didn't want to sit behind Holland for the rest of his life. Diego Jota was also considered a success. David Villa, Mario Mandzukic, and Marcos Llorente, Kieran Trippier, success for them. So, and I think what stands out there is like this. I think what people are afraid of is when you look at a list like that, you don't see a lot of young players. Some of them were younger, when they first got there, but there definitely doesn't seem to be like an obsession with young players. There's definitely players that you've known of before that have been at other big clubs then came over, or players that, were older and then they only played like a bit part. I think that's what people are concerned about, is that their whole idea around Arsenal is young team. But I'm going to hold your hand when I say this because I love you guys down. The only reason why we had to go into a young project is because we missed out on top four. And no, not even because we missed out on top four, is because we missed out on Europe altogether. The second year where we finished 8th, we didn't have any sort of Europe. And so the types of players that we were going to look to go for, we would never be able to get them because our reputation was shit and we didn't have any sort of Europe. So the club they put it out there PR as like, we're going to go for young players, blah, blah, blah. That was always the plan, but that was never the plan. Had we had made some sort of Europe in that season, we would have went for more seasoned players. Think about Mikel Arteta for a second. Do you really think Mikel Arteta wanted a young team? Think about the types of players that he's always lent on. Older players, always. He's always lent on the older players, even to the detriment of what we're trying to do. So it was never the case that we were always going to be this young team. And I think too many Arsenal fans have attached themselves to this idea that the only way to be successful is to have the youngest team. Actually, when's the last time you've seen the youngest team in the league win the league? And don't say the class of 92, because they had old ass players like Cantona and shit helping them. So they didn't even have a whole team full of young people. It just doesn't work. As talented as your team is, you need seasoned players, and you need a good balance. And I think, we're reaching a good point where some of our players are a little bit more like in their prime and stuff, but I can tell that there's like this urge and desperation to maintain a young side. One, because it means that there's less pressure because you're just always growing and you're always in a project, but they've attached themselves to that idea of we're going to win with this young side and this young manager. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. I just want to see a team built to win something. I don't care how old you are. I don't, because a good DOF is going to be able to kick you out the door and get some coins for you, even if you're 30 something. We can't do it because we got to cancel contracts, but other clubs do it all the time. So it shouldn't be that big of a deal. That doesn't mean you want your team to get fucking ancient, but you want there to be a balance of top experience, players in their prime, and young players ready to step up, in the next couple of years. We don't really ever have that. We always kind of have like one thing or the other. And so, yeah, I'm not scared of the fact that I'm looking at these names and I'm not seeing a bunch of young talent. Some of them obviously are not that old. Like Julian Alvarez is not old, but Kieran Trippier is fucking ancient. So hello. So yeah, Jacob says age definitely matters, but wouldn't sign anyone under the age of, under the age of 20, 25, 26. It all depends on what the contract looks like. I would sign an older striker for 2 years, 2 seasons, if they still got 2 good seasons left in them. I would, because especially with a good DOF that has people that he can ship him off to. Yes, but we don't ever have that. We do not sell well, so we are so afraid to get anybody that we may need to get off the books quickly. You shouldn't be that afraid to bring in somebody like an Ollie Watkins for 2-3 seasons. And we're like deathly afraid that everybody's going to end up like Socrates in them, and we're going to have to cancel their contracts. That was because we were in a shit place. Edu doesn't have any connections. He couldn't figure it out, so he just had to cancel the contracts, Gunnar since 2004 says, surely Real Madrid have to sell some players to balance their books. We can shop there for starters. Let's see. Chris says, thank you, Jess. Completely agree. It's just that's how I feel about it. But because I've never seen a whole team full of like young ass players win anything. They always have. Think about the team that beat us to the league twice in City. They didn't have a whole young ass team. They didn't have a whole young ass team. Not only did we have like the young ass manager, they had the best manager in the world. And then they had guys like Gundogan playing out of their skin, KDB at like 29 playing out of his skin. Rodri is no kid either, so I'm not saying that the team has to be super old. I'm just saying that like, I would not mind bringing in some players that are already like ready to go, it's not going to hurt us, especially with Mikel, who has like no experience in winning anything. But we're very, like, as a fan base, we are very arrogant, and anybody that's not like a hipster's choice, it's giving very much like, no, I haven't seen a thread from my favorite like hipster, football account. So no, I don't want this seasoned guy who's won something before. Mind you, again, like I said, there's a lot of Arsenal fans that I already know. I haven't been on Twitter, but I can already, I know y'all well, is you don't want this guy because he's not somebody that you can project upon something that he ain't. He's seasoned. You already know what you're going to get. And he's not known for bringing the gems from, fucking, bumfuck. It's not out there. He's somebody you can look at it and you see that this guy is going to be able to get you talent that you know about. So I don't know what to tell you, but I kind of like that. I kind of like that. 2 La Liga titles with teams he built in a Europa League. 2 La Liga titles in a league where you're not supposed to win. You're not supposed to win. You're not. I I'm sorry, but when I saw this morning, my friend sent it to me. I was like, I can't believe we're not going to do the dumb thing. And I think a lot of Arsenal fans are upset that we're not getting an Ito or a Rosicky or something, and I'm fucking jumping for joy. Like, I am jumping for joy. Arm says, assuming we get Berta, do you think he'll look to make world-class signings to get the fans on board? If so, who you think? I don't, honestly, I don't know. He's been at Atletico for like 12 years. So I have no idea how he'll attack it. I think a lot of it has to do with, how much money he has to play with at the beginning. He looks like he can find things within a decent budget as well. Like nothing is like super huge except for like, the like Julian Alvarez was a huge signing, and then also João Felix. But he seems like he can work within a decent budget. I don't know if he'll try to get fans on side. I don't know if that's, something he's going to care about. I think mostly the remit is to get those fucking pieces that are going to make us win trophies. And that's all he really needs to do. But like I said before, I'd like to see the targets change. It'd be nice to see, like, if we're still, according to what they were saying, is that we didn't need an actual DOF to convince Zubimendi to come. Do you really need a top DOF to get Nico Williams and Sesko done? Probably not, so if those end up just continuing to be the people that we go after, it's like, but if we start looking at different players and different links start coming out and they're players of like a certain level, players that you know of that are already good, blah, 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 then yeah, we'll see. But I think it all has to do with how much money he has to play with at the beginning. And, are Arsenal going to say, well, we're bringing you in to bring us Nico Williams and shit, or if they're going to actually listen to him? And I think we'll know pretty quickly, because I think, somebody like him will probably have some different ideas, for a team that needs to win something. Sesko and Nico Williams and Zubimendi will help, but it's not the transformative, unprecedented window that they're talking about, so they got to do something. But I don't know who. There is a power outage. Can you hear me? There was like a literal power outage right then. Let me see. Can you guys hear me? Let me know. There was like a literal power outage. Everything just went black. And then I was like, what? So yeah, hopefully you guys can see me. So I do cut off my shit. Yeah. He's probably like, what is she talking about? But yeah, I think I'm like excited, but I know why some people are probably not. I'm gonna switch my network off of my hotspot. So if it freezes, I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. I'm back. But yeah, strange. Let's see. And I am listening. I'm watching I'm seeing the comments come back through. So I'm just pulling up what I was looking at before I was so rudely interrupted. Jesus. What kind of power outage bullshit was that? Okay, let's see. Jacob says, Jess, I don't think Berta will have a huge impact till 2026 windows. You may only see one signing this summer in his idea plan. I mean, if that one signing makes a huge difference, then I guess, but I don't know if we can get away with one signing. I really don't. I don't think one signing is enough, to be honest. I don't. So, yeah.
Pronouncenames.com.
You guys see my work there. I'm just waiting, trying to make sure that the comments are coming through and you guys can still see me. Because I don't see you, I don't see your guys' comments coming through. So let's see. Yeah. Yeah, I can see myself. So, and yep. And I see Nico asking, the wind is blowing really fucking hard. Like, I think that's what it is. Like, the wind is blowing really hard. Like, that scared me. I thought somebody was at the door. My gosh. Okay. So, what is Arteta's playing style? I mean, when he was normal, it was literally exactly what he said it was. You know, he said when he first got here that he wanted to dominate, the other team. He wanted to have all the ball. He wanted to attack, score lots of goals, play good football, and bring, the Arsenal way back. That's what he said when he was hired after Emery. And that's what he was in 2022, 2023. I think that has to be who he is based on what he said. This guy that we've seen over the last 2 seasons, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that man is. I do not, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, like, outside of what I've seen. I want to believe that the playing style that he's adopted over the last 2 seasons is an effect of maybe, being afraid of, like, what happened in the season prior, but I don't know. I don't know. So, um, yeah, it's tough because when we hit 2022, 2023, I was like, because there were like parts of the 2022, 2023, the season before that one. It just wasn't as smooth because we had guys like Cedric out there instead of like Zinchenko. So once Zinchenko and Jesus came in, like, no Lacazette, now it's Jesus. It's different now. So those ideas were always there. The ideas were always there. It's just switched. So, like, his first full season, I chalked that off. Like, he was just trying to survive. We finished 8th. He was just trying to survive. Couldn't get his ideas across to that group. As soon as Saka and Emil came in that next season, you started to see more of what he was trying to do. And then that season that we first challenged after we got Jesus and Zinchenko, that felt like the manifestation of like all the things that he was trying to do. He just didn't have the players to execute it. Mind you, then he had a new ball playing center back in Saliba that came in. He had a new right back as well because Ben moved over there. You had Thomas actually in there because he wasn't injured. You had Jesus and Zinchenko that were like new signings, and then Martinelli and Saka were doing their thing. So I thought that was like what he had planned to do. Then he tore it apart. What he said when he first got hired and what we saw in 21, 22, and 22 and 23, that's who I think Mikel is. I think he's scared shitless and has imposter syndrome right now because we talked about this in the 4-hour stream. We challenged too early. There's a lot of pressure on us now. And I think this is a reaction to, he felt like what he did in that season didn't work, so now he's going to do something completely different. He's overthought it. I don't think this is who Mikel really is. I don't think this, oh my gosh, he wants to be Jose Mourinho thing. I don't think any of that is, I don't think that's who he is. I don't, because I've never seen him actually outside of that first season where he was being more defensive and playing a back three. Everything else has been trying to score. And if we couldn't, it was just because we couldn't build up. We didn't have the people. Once we could do that, we played free flowing. So that has to be who he is. Lul says, I can't believe we don't have a striker. You'd think a big club would see that. Do they do this on purpose? I don't even know. Chris says, I think losing that season rattled Mikel. He seems like a totally different guy now. He's absolutely obsessed with defending and control now. Our players clearly terrified to lose the ball. They are terrified to lose the ball. And that doesn't make for good attacking football because, like, if you watch any other team, basically, except for us, like, their attackers lose the ball a lot. Nothing really comes off until it does. It's very rare that every single action comes off, but we won't even try nothing because if you give up the ball, it's like a cardinal sin, So yeah, they are deathly afraid, man. They are scared. They're scared like fuck to give that ball away. Errol says, hi, just long time no here. Why? I was here like a couple days ago, actually, but yeah, I've been a little bit like off the boil, but like, we're getting back into it. Amina, thank you so much for your super chat. Amina asks, do you think Arteta is scared or out of his depth? Maybe like a little bit of both. I feel like he's like where he's in his sweet spot right now is when we're not under as much pressure and he's just coaching a group of players and he can focus on making those players better. Where he becomes out of his depth is when we are no longer in project mode and we're in win now mode. He's definitely out of his depth when it comes to getting us over the line, which is a huge red flag considering that's pretty much the entire job at a big club. At a club like, like Sociedad or a club like, Brentford or Brighton, those clubs, it's about development and trying to get as close as you can to European places. There's not a lot of pressure to do it, but if you do it, it's like great. When we were kind of in that mode, Arteta was so much more relaxed. Once he got to the mode where we needed to win, he's definitely out of his depth. So yeah, and that's like a huge red flag. Like he can't even get us to anytime we need to win, we don't. And as much as people want to blame it on the players only, which they do need to look in the mirror, what do we always say? It comes from the top, the mentality. And the main thing is the players never look relaxed enough to get their game off in games that matter. There's always like we create a whole bunch of chances and then we don't convert or we don't create any chances or we make huge mistakes. Like there's always something, and it's been consistent, since the beginning. So I think right now he's a really good coach, but he's not a winning coach, So yeah, I hope that answers the question, but it feels like he is frightened because once he got to the point where we needed to win, he just kind of like froze. Even when we didn't need to win, because in 2022, 2023, the feeling right after that season, the narrative was that they are a young side. They came up against a really good City side and they were really close, but they're probably just missing a couple of pieces. But this is a really good team. The way that people spoke about us after that season, but beyond rival banter, was that this is a really good team destined to go this way if they just add a couple of pieces. But it didn't feel like he thought that way. It felt like he thought like, I need to redo all of this. Like it just didn't work. And genuinely, we just needed to add a couple of pieces and keep doing what we were doing. And we didn't do that. Like it was just so strange. So yeah, YouTube user says he's struggled with expectations. Jacob says, like, I understand a lot of criticism, but no team is winning the league with 4 main attackers out. It's impossible. I think you know what it is. It's not so much about winning the league without your 4 main attackers out. I think it was pretty clear before any of them even got injured that we weren't going to win the league. I think anybody that was watching us from the very beginning around the Bournemouth time did not feel in their heart of hearts that we were going to win. It always felt like we were struggling from the beginning. We were just a little short. We weren't really. The fact that when we're playing teams in the top 10, if you just showed somebody that never watched football before and said, which team is the better team, they wouldn't always pick out Arsenal because we would always kind of like lower just to the people that were playing. We really struggle against those top 10 teams. We really don't look that much better than them. If you're just looking at that game, you would not know we were the better team. That was happening from the beginning. That was from the beginning. Like that wasn't when Saka got injured and when Odegaard got injured and when Havertz. No, we were looking like that way before. The only games where we looked good were like from minute 1 to minute 90 were kind of like Sporting, but most of the games there was always something a little off. So I think that's where, where I don't think people are really hearing the whole like, yeah, but our 4 attackers were out. How did you feel after Bournemouth? Did you think we were going to win the league after that? Did you think we were going to win the league when we were playing against Wolves on the first day of the season? I was like, and the thing about Arsenal is when we were actually playing well, we played really well in preseason. So I don't think it's a warming up to get, it was never that. It was never like a warming up to get up. No, we just weren't good enough. We struggled. So yeah, Burmy says, just realized you were doing a stream. Oh yeah, I just be popping up here and there, but yeah, we were kind of talking about Berta and we got off a topic, but yeah, like this is the biggest signing we're going to make. This is going to make or break our summer, and we know everything that we need. Like obviously McCall needs to shape up as well, and the players that are already there, but both of those, the players that we have and the manager, like really need a couple of players to push them forward, players that just make us inevitable. And I think that's the thing, is like there's no inevitability at the top end of the pitch. It's very much giving. If the patterns and the set pieces aren't working, nobody can come up with anything. And we don't strike fear into the opposition. And to not have that, the first season where we challenged, they were scared. They were scared of Martinelli and Saka and Odegaard and Jesus. They were scared of our attack. Now ain't nobody scared. No one's scared. And so they need to bring in players that have that inevitability, that strike fear into the opposition. That doesn't mean we need to go to Real Madrid and say, can we get Mbappe? Like, no. There are players that do that on a smaller scale. They don't play for Arsenal, though. Like, they don't play for Arsenal. So we need to, bring in some new players in those positions. And that's why the sporting director is so important. Nico says, and no one has a full fit squad this season. Yeah. I mean, we've had good circumstances, in the last 2 seasons where we've basically been able to play our best 11, give or take, for like, let's call 80% of the season. And we still weren't able to do it. So yeah, with these injuries, we weren't going to be able to do it, but it was already like, we already knew we weren't going to win the league. Like, I know people were pretending like they thought that we would just because they were saying it's our year. But when you're going to win the league, it looks obvious. I think from minute 1, it looked like Liverpool. Actually, when we played them in preseason, I was worried. I was like, They're not struggling at all. Slot looks comfortable. They look relaxed. Where we look tight, I remember watching that preseason game, Jesus looked so stressed out because he knew he needed to score this season, because he knew he hadn't been playing well, because he knew, he had lost his spot to Kai Havertz. And instead of being like relaxed, it's been preseason, he was so stressed. Everyone looked so stressed. And I'm just like, Liverpool look like they're not stressed at all. They're not stressed at all. They're relaxed. And that just carried into the season. We look like we are shitting bricks constantly. Amina says, I don't know if Arteta can handle big personality players. I think that's the reason why he won't get top players. We'll see. I mean, I don't look at this list and necessarily see, like, except for Luis Suarez, who came with a level of authority. I think most of these players, when they came to, Atletico, were pretty unassuming, so hopefully Berta is able to bring just a different level of player, because big personality, except for when it comes to the striker, I feel like big personality sometimes is like just thrown around as well. Like anybody who's good is going to be a dick, but that's not necessarily true. I don't necessarily believe that. I think he needs players that when they get on the pitch, they don't care about anything but winning, and they'll do anything to get it. Strikers are a completely different animal. Strikers are almost always assholes. But your top wingers, your top midfielders, stuff like that, some of those guys are nice guys. Like there's a difference between nice guys but not nice on the pitch, and nice guys and then nice guys that are also nice on the pitch. We have nice guys that are also nice on the pitch. It's okay to have nice guys. Like Conte was a nice guy, but that guy, even though he was smiling, was a bastard on the pitch. And I think the two things get conflated. The only position where I disagree on what I just said is striker. I've never seen a striker that was good at their job that was not a dick, or at least arrogant. So that's the one where he'll never really get away with it. And maybe that's why he keeps bringing in strikers that are not really strikers, because then they don't have that, but other positions, they don't have to be dicks. They just have to be better than what we get. They have to not be nice on the pitch. You know what I mean? Like Gabriel's not nice on the pitch, but he's a nice guy. He's not an asshole. You need those going forward, Big says Luis Suarez signing was because Koeman drove him out. Different circumstances. Suarez at that time didn't have a big personality, plus it's Simeone. I mean, but he did have a big personality. Like, do you actually think Luis Suarez became like a wallflower just because Koeman was treating him like shit? Like, he was somebody that came with a certain level of gravitas. Like, even in this article, they were saying that it was like, for people in La Liga that really knew Luis Suarez, they felt like it was disrespectful to even have Luis Suarez on the market for 5.5 million. And again, he didn't go to a minnow or go to Saudi or China or anywhere like that. He went to a direct rival and won the league. So let's not pretend like Luis Suarez became a wallflower just because he was not liked by Koeman. He did come with a certain level of gravitas. Luis Suarez is a psycho. Like, let's be honest. Let's be honest. So yeah, Marco says, I don't buy into Arteta can't handle big personalities. Xhaka was a big personality. Xhaka was a big personality. The key is for those big personalities to buy into what Mikel is selling. Abba wasn't buying into it. That's a really, really good point. Xhaka was a really good a big personality. And he was picking up what Mikel was putting down, so again, I don't really think that the big personality thing only really applies to the striker. I do not know a top striker. Maybe like they're very few and far between, but most of them they vary from extremely confident to total asshole. They either go from Lewandowski to Zlatan. That is kind of the range you're going for in terms of personality. Lewandowski is like not an ass, like, but he's uber confident. And I think what you can't get away with confident players is making them do things outside of what they know is good for them. A top striker is not going to buy into a style of play that doesn't make them play in their best way. And I think that's why Aubameyang didn't buy in, because playing off of the wing and being asked to build up and to create for Lacazette didn't really suit his style of play. So he's not going to be able to get away with it with a true number 9. With a true number 9, their only thing is they don't care about the build-up stuff. They don't care about the off-the-ball stuff. They want you to build the system around them scoring goals. And if you don't do that, they're going to be upset, whether they punch you in the face or not. Maybe they don't do all that, but they're not going to be happy, you know? That's just the striker. That's just what they are. Like, they just don't exist in any other mold. They don't. Like I said, Lewandowski to Zlatan. None of them are going to play off of the wing and create for Lacazette, you know? Like, let's be honest. Let's see. My issue with Mikel is that his game plan are iterations of the same thing, very structured, prescribed movements. After a scoreless 60 minutes, he has no wild card option. We have no real plan B. And praise, I do agree that he's extremely rigid. And my only thing with all of this is that I still feel like we are 5% away from doing the things that we want to do. I don't think we're super far away. I think we're close. And I think that's why it annoys me more than anything. If you're going to play this way and you're going to play pragmatic and you're going to be more of a dual team rather than a technical team, really like lean into that, because what he wants is to control the ball 100% of the time with players that don't have the technical ability to break down blocks. And that's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive when you have a big team like us that is more of like a dual side, more of an off the ball team. You're going to want the other team to have the ball and you're going to want to nick it off of them. Most of our players can do that. Our fullbacks are really good at nicking the ball off of people. Our center backs are good at winning the ball off of people. And we have one of the best midfielders in the world to do that thing. So if you have that, lean into it, let them have the ball, and then you have the open space to hit them on the break. What you don't have is the type of attackers that do that for you. So what I want to see is for Arteta to be something. If you're going to play this off the ball, more big guy thing, let the other team have the ball more and get you some really fast attackers to hit them on the break and have that inevitability. Be the team that nicks, the team that we hate. We hate that team. We hate that team that allows us to play with the ball, nicks it off of us, and then hits us on the break. Or become the more technical side and stop this pragmatic off-the-ball stuff and have a good enough technical team to break down the mid and low blocks that we've been struggling with for 5 years. We've been struggling with this for a long time. It's not going to go away next season. So you need to have the type of players that can exist within the pockets and make shit shake when the spaces are condensed. That's not Declan Rice in the 8, baby. That's not. So if that's what you want to do, then we need to give the ball to the other team, nick it off of them, and then have fast attackers. You can't do both. You can't sit in between. That's my problem with the style of play. If you want to play this way, you need to have the type of attackers that feed off of scraps and can feed off of counterattacks and just eat that, and that's what they do. But you have unclinical attackers with no speed, no nothing, and then you want to be all up in somebody else's half with the ball all the time. You don't have anybody that can unpick the lock. It's giving identity crisis. And that's why I do think that Mikel has an identity crisis off of the back of that first title race, because we had a very physical back line, which is all we needed. We need the DM and the 4 defenders to have the stability to keep us into the other person's half so that the people in front, the Saka, the 9, the attacking midfielder, and the other attacking midfielder that was Xhaka, to do all the chefing. You just needed to improve that. That's the direction that we were going in, but now we've kind of like half-assed it, and it's like, nah. Praise says, agree with all of it. Game to game, we can need different things, but in those final moments when you need something else or you need a change, I don't see what that option is, especially when we lose Saka. Marco says, 100% Jess. I think Mikel understands that, but for some reason he refused to make the call on the party Rice conundrum he had. And it's just, again, if you want to play this way and you're going to have 2 DMs in your midfield, then it is imperative that you have players that can create their own moments and that they're so inevitable and they're so good at the top end of the pitch that they can feed off of scraps. Nothing is going to change from next season. Like if the inevitable happens, Zubimendi, Rice, and Odegaard happens, the chance creation and all that is going to be exactly the same. You're going to have Odegaard dropping deep. You're going to have Rice all in places that he shouldn't be. And you're going to have Zubimendi in midfield. So those 3 players up front, all those positions are going to become like they need to be able to create. They need to be able to shoot. They need to be able to feed off of scraps. And right now, Saka's kind of like the only one who can do that. So those 2 attackers up there, the other ones, the striker and the left wing, need to be different because those 2 players need everybody to do everything for them. Havertz and Martinelli, their whole game is built around somebody else creating the football for them. That doesn't work for us. Not the way that we are right now, Arteta he's in between styles. He needs to decide who he wants to be. Do you want to go full force with this? If you do, then your attackers need to be so much better. Your attackers don't need to be as good or as clinical if you create more chances, but the only way to do that is if you have a better technical level, like in midfield and like, you know what I mean? So he needs to pick something, and hopefully the DOF will help him in this respect. Will help him be able to identify like the types of talent that are going to help him do what he wants to do and make it more clear, because if we keep going with the in-between, we're going to get the results that we're getting. And to be honest, I'd prefer us to unwind away from this kind of like super defensive kind of thing and go back to what we were doing, but just with a better striker, get another left center mid that offers creativity like Xhaka did, but is better than Granit was, just improve on what we were doing. Because also the players look so much happier playing that way, and they have so much more joy and so much more life, and they have looked zapped for the last 2 seasons of any sort of joy or anything. And it just shows, it shows in the results. It shows on their faces. They do not look like they're enjoying their football. And you don't get good teams that win things are enjoying their football. They're not running around looking like they're at a funeral. Let's see. Pep has always said, I can coach the team up to the final third. The rest is on them. It's as simple as that. Gets elite attackers that can change games. And that's why it makes it like very surprising that he went with multiple summers without improving that and then spending a shit ton on Kai Havertz. That's always going to be the conundrum for me is, it just never made sense. And even after that season, I think because we didn't know what the damage was going to be on Jesus, because he was kind of like in and out at the back end of that season, and we had gotten Trossard and he kind of paper over the crack, that we felt like we needed like a fail-safe, like a plan B, just in case, we need an additional attacker. We weren't in a position where we were asking for a striker and a winger. I think we were in the Kudus, Xavi Simmons kind of vibe where we can, plug and play. We didn't do that. We didn't do that, Nico, don't see us getting over the line with those players. Not with the players that we're linked to, they will improve us, but we'll still fall a little bit short. Lowell says, if we can't get Champions League, then Arteta needs to go because he has no excuse. I think our biggest thing for the Champions League thing is the fact that everybody else is so inconsistent helps us. But if they get any level of like consistency, we're in trouble because we can't score a goal right now. What does it say? Somebody just sent me something. Sorry. Until now, there had only been talk of a verbal agreement, but Sesko has a formally fixed release clause in his contract until 2029. This clause can be activated starting this summer. It is tied to various parameters, such as games played, goals, and assists, and increase regularly. Currently, the clause stands at 70 million euros, but by the end of the season is expected to reach approximately 80 million euros. All top English clubs have expressed interest, including Manchester United, Tottenham, and Arsenal. The only club not involved in the race is Manchester City. Okay. I mean, I think I already saw something that said that he was gonna be more expensive, which is why, like, maybe getting in a DOF at this time is important because if it ends up being the case that he's way more expensive than he probably should be, then, you can go do something else. Um, I like Sesko, but I like him way more at, like, 70 million max, So, yeah. Um Let's see. Pure Vibes says Jonathan David free, low risk. Um, Jordan says just now, what happened in January makes perfect sense. Board has taken transfer say away from Arteta. Arteta wanted Watkins in January. The board told him no. Berta will choose our targets. I would not mind if Arteta has less power. I think it's important for him not to have autonomy over everything. He needs to focus on what he's doing. I think they gave him way too much power after he did so well in 2022, 2023. I think everybody had just decided he's the Don, he's going to be this guy, he's going to be this and that. And he took that power and was like, you gave him an inch and he took a mile, and he got everything was wrong in that summer window in terms of not how much we spent, but were those signings what we needed to push us over the line? No, so he needs something. He needs somebody to grapple a little bit of control back. And there's nothing that Arteta can say to this guy. He can say, like, I want so and so, but this guy has too much experience and too much under his belt to be like, yes, Mikel, yes, Mikel. He's gonna be like, well, you probably need this, so we're going to do that, and so what I would say is if this does go through and we do end up getting Berta, I would say maybe look forward, like you probably whatever you expect in terms of just this young player thing, I think that's going to be out the door. I think he is going to look at more established players. I think he's not going to be afraid to do short-term kind of deals that get you over the line to win things. I don't think that, everything is going to be this long-term plan. I think a lot of people are going to have a very hard time getting to grips with it. I really think they're going to be having like full-on heart attacks. This guy brought Kieran Trippier to Atletico when he was like 28 or 29. He did the Suarez deal. Like, he is not afraid to go get the little small things. Like, he's not afraid to go find smart things in the market. And not everything has to have like a long-term 180-page binder. Sometimes you just need to get it done. And I think that's the problem with us, is that everything is so long-term and so drawn out and so like overly thought out, where it's like, just get it done. One thing I do like, I know this, we don't like to compare to them, but one thing I do like about Aston Villa's like transfer strategy is they just go get it done. If they want to sell somebody, they just sell them. If they want to bring people in, they just bring them in. Of course they think about it, but in the January window, they got rid of John Duran. We would have never been able to do that. If Saudi was asking for a 21-year-old that we had in our team, they would have never been able to do that. They would have because they would have just been like, I just can't make a decision. It's just so hard. They did that. They brought in Malen, they brought in Rashford, and they brought in Asensio. And they just got it done. And even if that's not a move that you want to do, I appreciate not having to have an 180-page binder in order to make a decision on someone. Multiple windows go by before we decide to sell someone. Like, multiple windows go by before we decide to sell someone. You should have either got Sesko or not, get Nico Williams or not. Move. I appreciate people that just go ahead and get it done. Just get it done. Marco says that's the Italian way, by the way. All clubs in Serie A don't look long-term. 2 years is long-term for them. Yeah, he is Italian, if you guys don't know, which is kind of cool. I don't know why it would be cool, but it is. Nostradamus says, I'd rather spend 70 million sterling on Openda. You guys know I'm not a big Openda person, but I kind of get what you're saying. Nico says, most important part of the team is the spine, and that's why you can't get over the line with a project striker. That's interesting. I think you can't get it over the line. Yeah, I guess that's a good take. You can't get over the line with a project striker. I mean, in the Prem, when's the last time we seen somebody with a project striker win the league? City went from Aguero to doing false ninery to Holland, but Liverpool have Salah, who is their striker. He is a winger, but he is their striker, and he is a part of the spine. Leicester even had fucking Vardy, so I guess that is a decent point, that people are making, that like if you get Sesko and he's a project, you'll never be able to win anything. So I kind of get that aspect of things. Karu Bull says if Berta manages to sack Arteta this summer, he instantly becomes a club legend. He won't. Chris Fraser says, in the words of Conte, you may choose the wrong wife, but not the wrong striker. Did he say that? Did he actually say that? That's actually really funny. Jordan says, I heard he has a Conte-like personality. An Italian journalist said this on an interview I looked at. No nonsense. Shows the Arsenal board are sending a message to Arteta, fix up or you'll get sacked. Oh my God, I love that. I love a no nonsense. I live for that. Like, I'm sorry. We've had too much nonsense and tomfoolery over the last couple of years. We don't need any more, so I love that. Hello, you want to say hello? Say hello. Hello. Yeah, we don't need any more tomfoolery. So I actually like that. Nico says, Jess, you think Berta will have more power than Arteta? I do think that this January window, like somebody said, was a big indicator of how they think of Arteta. In the past, they would have found that additional 15 million, 16 million and got Ollie Watkins for him. They didn't do that this time. So maybe they are like, we've wasted a lot of money. The last two windows haven't done what they needed to do to get us over the line. So we're going to pare back and get you a stronger personality, not going for an Ito, not going for a Per or Rosicky is a big indicator to me that this was not all Arteta is doing. Arteta has never brought in anybody or co-signed anyone who is not younger and more inexperienced than he is. Not one. And he was strong-arming Edu. He won't be able to strong-arm this guy. Like, he just won't, so hopefully this is a balancing out. Obviously, because there's probably somebody in the comments saying, so you just don't want the manager to get any of his targets. I am so sorry, but there's like Pep works with people, but they don't just get what Pep wants. They don't. The Cheeky Bergestein, he does what the fuck he wants to do, but he gets Pep what he needs. Like Klopp wasn't getting everything that he wants, just exactly what he wants. In fact, he like some of the biggest vetoes have ended up being some of Liverpool's biggest wins. So if Pep and Klopp were and are not getting everything that they want, then why should Mikel? He's less qualified, less good. He needs more support. He needs more support from a bigger voice in the room that has been there and done that and worn the t-shirt. Jacob says, Arteta has never got only what he wanted. Timber wasn't even a player on Arteta's mind. Same with Odegaard. Oh my gosh. He gets a lot of what he wants. If he can convince the club to bring in Havertz, he has too much power. Let's be honest. Edward says, evening, Jess. Good evening to you as well. Clem says 100% no man should have all the say. And I just think it should be more balanced. I don't think Arteta shouldn't get anything that he wants. I think he should get what he wants within reason. I think what we were doing with Emery was too far in that direction where Emery had no say and Raul was running everything. Now we went back to the arson kind of structure, and that doesn't work either. It needs to be more equal, more balanced, more everybody working well together for the greater good of the side. Nobody's ego should be in play. Nobody should be trying to cut somebody out. It should be equal, It should be, the sporting director should be the main, him getting vetoed by the manager. I don't think that should happen. I'm sorry. And I just feel like Edu was talking and everybody was like, shut up. What do you think? And he was just like, oh, nah. He was like, get me out of here. Owen says, if no nonsense is true, that's amazing. Imagine a sporting director not entertaining 30 million on a backup keeper when the budget is not infinite. Jacob says, Pep wanted Nunez. That was very disingenuous. I mean, he doesn't just get everything that he wants. We know that. Pep works with the team, you know. I think it's very much so like even if you I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it seem like Arteta doesn't get his targets and he has his hands tied behind his back, but he very much so doesn't. You know, Ornstein, the guys that you guys like really, really back, the Sammy McBells, those kind of guys, they are always talking about how Arteta is a loud voice in the room. He gets what he wants. He has convinced the club. He convinced the club on Marino when they didn't think he was the right guy. He convinced the club on Kai Havertz that they didn't think was the right guy. He convinced them on Calafiori, who was like a left field thing that he was like, we have to get. He gets a lot of what he wants. So let's not pretend like just because like being pedantic for the sake of it, you're not going to be able to, because you can't also convince me that he doesn't get anything that he wants. He gets a lot of what he wants, a lot, you know, and a lot of what he wants also ends up being nothing. If he can't get the number one option, we get nothing. That's another thing that's a player. Nothing on the bench, that's his player too. So he has a lot of power. He definitely does. That is well documented and reported. We don't have to pretend like he has his hands stuck behind his back. He was the louder voice in the room than Edu, which is why Edu walked. He bumped us. He ditched us before halfway through the season, knowing that there was a January transfer window imminent, like right then, and a women's coach position that needed to be filled. He was like kick rocks. Like seriously, I don't know why people are pretending like Arteta is some little deer. Like he has a loud ass fucking voice. He gets a lot of what he wants. And when you convince somebody on Marino and Kai Havertz and Calafiori, I love Calafiori, but you could have spent that 37 million on like literally anything else. Like it's crazy. Like it's crazy. We don't have to pretend like he doesn't. He gets a lot of what he wants. A lot of what he wants. Not every single thing, but yeah. Howard says Arsenal will always be run as a business first. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. Boy says our players always come cheap to other clubs. The world knows it. Boy says Edu didn't want to buy all the Wagyu for his barbecues. Prime Adebayor was class. He was. Adebayor for me is because of the way that he exited is spoken about in a way that's like what he was like versus what he played like are two different conversations. Adebayor would like be my ideal kind of striker if I had to think of one like right now. Like I'm like, oh, I want a striker to be like something. I would think the playing style of Adebayor is exactly what I would think. Not too much of an like, not he's not a Timberland boot 9 where you can't pass the ball to him and make something shake. He can pick a little pass, you know, but he can hit through the ball. He's, you know, he has the thing about him where he just knows he's going to score a goal. Adebayor wouldn't have played for so many top clubs if he was a bum, you know. He gets spoken about in a certain way because he left and the way that he left, but let's not, you know, let's not pretend the guy was really, really good. He really was. And he was cheap as fuck. Like you guys are saying, like 4 million or 9 million or some nonsense like that. But yeah, not to get in the weeds of, you know, there are just a lot of, you know, kind of like I'm on the side of Mikel has his hands tied behind his back. So if you say that he doesn't get he gets what he wants, then I'm gonna, you know, he gets what he wants. He gets a lot of what he wants. It's well documented. It's well reported by people that you guys rate. So if Ornstein said that the sky is purple, you guys would believe it, right? So it's well reported. He gets a lot of what he wants. He's a loud voice in the room. And he's had a lot to do with how these last two windows have panned out, whether that was getting exactly what he wants in Marino, Kai, or Calafiori, or saying, well, I don't want anything if I'm not getting what I want, you know? So there's just that. It is what it is. Jess, what do you think of Jonathan David links? Hello? We're linked with him? No, there's no way. I know Boy is happy if that's happening. Hold on. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. No, we're not. Nah. Well, okay, let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. Free transfer, right? Personal free. It would be free, right? Hold on. Let me think. Okay. So, as a free signing to replace Gabriel Jesus, yes. Yes, yes. Because the truth of it is we need to replace two strikers. We need to replace Havertz as the striker and Jesus because he's got the ACL. So, and all this like, well, somebody can play at the 9. No, you need somebody that can come off of the bench that scores goals. Me and my friend were talking about this the other day, like watching like Patrick Schick come off the bench. That's not necessarily somebody that Arsenal fans would want, but I've never seen an Arsenal team like for so long not have a striker and also not a backup striker that just bags goals. We had Eddie for so long; he wasn't good enough. Lacazette fell off of the proverbial cliff. So as a backup striker on a free, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but not just the only thing. Not the only thing. We'd still have to get someone else, because idealistically, you'd want to replace both Kai Havertz and Jesus as the strikers, to be honest, So yeah, as a free signing, that would be cool, but we'll see what this means. Boy says it's a no-brainer getting Jonathan David. You've been saying that for years. Let's check his little stats real quick before we get out of here. Okay, Beckham, I'm coming. Hold on. Yeah, it's time to get off of here because he's losing his shit. 24 goals. I mean, he's never not been in double digits. I'll give him that. Most recent seasons, 24 goals, 19, 13 so far this season, and we're like more than halfway through. Sure, sure. That's much better than having Eddie as a backup, and we did that for a long time. So, I mean, yeah, sure. Sure. Jordan says he's not good. And what do you mean Jonathan David has never been in double digits? No, I said he always has double digits. I didn't say he's never had it. He literally is always in double digits. That's what I'm looking at right now. So, yeah, but listen, I know we're going to do a lot of this. I'm seeing people say like he's not carpet worthy. And I do think he's the kind of unsexy signing that a lot of Arsenal fans would not want. But the reality is like there are no Thierrys just wasting away at Juventus. Like, sometimes you have to get what's out there and we shouldn't just like wait because the likelihood of us getting Isak is very, very unlikely. So, we just have to get the best from what's available to us. And as a free signing, that would be replace Jesus, as the backup striker. I'm taking that. But as a starter, we need to get somebody else up in there too. He's not too old, and he scores double digits every season, which is something that some of our strikers cannot say. So yeah, and he's also a striker. We don't have any strikers at the club. Do you know how crazy that is? Not having a single striker, not one that's just a striker. So yeah, I kind of get it, but we could talk about that on another day. But thanks for hanging out with me. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. Like I said, my thing is yes to Berta. I'm down for it. I like it. Some of the things that you guys brought to the table as well about him being like a no-nonsense Conte type, right up my alley. That's what I'm looking for. No softy, can think about what he's going to be in the future. I want receipts. And the receipts say that he's a really, really good sporting director. Perfect? No. But guess what? No one is. And you know who really wasn't perfect? Edu. So yeah, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.